Hey, it's Dave from CG Shortcuts. Today, we're going to do this. We're creating dynamic noodles in Cinema 4D. This video was brought to you by Skillshare, where you can get unlimited access to more than 22,000 full courses on a huge range of subjects. The classes are project-based, and teachers take you through all the steps in creating everything from motion graphics to photography. And when you're done, you can share your work with teachers and the student community for feedback and support. We've actually got 4 CG Shortcuts courses on there now, covering a bunch of stuff beyond what we normally go into on YouTube. And we're releasing new courses all the time. So if you want to give Skillshare a try, there's a link below for a free 2-month trial for the first 1,000 people that will give you access to the entire catalog of courses, including the courses from CG Shortcuts, so you can see if it's right for you. Now let's get back to the tutorial. Okay, to speed things up, I've already created a simple bowl geometry here, but you can use any shape you like. I've just made this one from a hemisphere. So the first thing we're going to do is create a single noodle. So we'll head up here to our splines, and a cool little trick for getting straight lines is actually to use a helix. So let's bring that guy in, and we'll zoom out a tad so we can see this. We want our spline to be pointed upward, so let's change the orientation. I think the XZ plane is the one we want. So now we want to straighten this out. And we can do that by setting the start radius to 0 centimeters, and the end radius also to 0. And now we have a straight line that's nice and easy to manage. And we can even adjust its length by tweaking the height here. It's currently set to 200 centimeters, which is pretty long for a noodle, but we're going for something a bit more stylized. So we're actually going to make our noodle crazy long. Let's try 1000 centimeters. And we want to make sure we've got enough subdivisions in our noodle so it can properly deform when we go to simulate this. So I think 100 should be okay for now. We also want the points of our spline to be evenly distributed. So just make sure your intermediate points are set to uniform, and we can probably also bring this value down to 2. So now that we've got a spline to represent one noodle, we need to duplicate this and make a bunch of noodles that we can drop into the bowl. So with our helix selected, let's head over to the mograph menu, and we'll bring in a cloner. And remember to hold Alt when you click on that so it's automatically applied to our helix. But we're not seeing those clones just yet because the default mode is set to linear. So our noodles are being cloned along the y-axis. So let's change this to grid array. And we just want a few of these noodles in a bunch. So we'll bring the count in the X and Z direction down to 2. And we'll bring these guys in closer so they're positioned directly over the bowl. And we can also move our cloner up a tad so there's some space for these to fall down. So now we can make our noodles dynamic. So with our cloner selected, let's right click and go down to simulation tags. And we're going to make a soft body simulation. So let's give this a soft body tag. Then we'll head over to the soft body tab of our soft body tag and tweak some of these settings. We'll start by bringing the spring structural parameter way down to make our noodles less rigid. We want them to be nice and soft so they can bend and crumple as they fall into the bowl. We also want the noodles to lose energy once they land in the bowl, so we'll increase the damping so they settle faster. Let's try taking this up to 500%. We'll also decrease the shearing of the springs and increase the damping on the shearing to 100%. And we'll do the same for flexion. And I also found that halving the rest length gives us a more noodle-like result. Then we can take a quick look under the Force tab. We also want to bring up the linear and angular damping to reduce that kinetic energy in our simulation. So our noodles should fall into the bowl a bit slower and steadier. So we'll bring these guys up to 99%. Then we'll head over to the collision tab and make a few last tweaks before we simulate this. So we want to apply the collisions to our children of the cloner and to all the individual elements. Then we'll leave the shape on automatic, but we don't want our noodles intersecting each other. We're going to give these guys some thickness soon, so we need to tell the dynamics to use a collision margin around each noodle. So let's enable that, and we'll make this 1.2 centimeters. So they'll try to keep that distance away from each other and act as though they have thickness. Then finally, we'll bring the bounciness of our collisions up and the friction down. So now that we've got our noodles set up, let's take a look at our simulation. Let's hit play. and they drop down, but they're passing through our bowl. And that's because we haven't actually set anything for our noodles to collide with yet. So let's rewind this first, and we want our noodles to collide with our bowl. So we'll right click that guy, and under the simulation tags, let's apply a collider body. Then we just want to check that its collision shape is set to static mesh. So the exact shape of our bowl is calculated in the simulation, and we can probably bring the bounce and friction on our bowl down a tad. And just in case our noodles end up spilling out of our bowl, let's also come up here and bring in a floor plane. And to make that a collision object as well, we can just grab the tag we just made on the bowl, and holding Control, we can drag that onto our floor to make a copy. And we can just move this guy down here so we don't get confused. And let's see what that gives us. Okay, so our noodles are starting to gather in the bowl now. And if we take a closer look, and it might be a bit hard to see, but they're also keeping that distance away from each other, where we set that collision margin earlier. So to see this a bit clearer, let's give these noodles some actual thickness. So we'll rewind this, and we can probably use a sweep to extrude our splines, but we'll need the sweep to affect all of our clones as well. So if we grab our cloner, we can come over here and bring in a connect to connect our noodles together as one object. So we'll hold down Alt when we bring that in, so it's applied to our cloner. And we don't see any changes yet, but that's going to allow us to use a sweep down all of our clone splines. And if you've ever used a sweep before, you'll know we also need a shape to sweep along our splines. So we want our noodles to be round, so let's grab a circle. And we need to make the width of our circle less than the collision margin we set up earlier, which was 1.2 centimeters. So let's just make this 1 centimeter, so there's a little bit of space between each noodle when they collide with each other. And now, with our circle selected, we can come over here and bring in that sweep. Again, holding Alt so it becomes a parent of our circle, like so. And now, if we drag our connected splines into the bottom of the sweep hierarchy here, we're now sweeping the circle down each spline, and finally getting our extruded noodles. So now if we hit play, we're almost there. They're looking a little bit pointy for noodles, so we just need to smooth these out. Let's grab our sweep, and we'll head over here, and holding Alt, let's bring in a subdivision surface. And that might take a few seconds to calculate, but when it does, we now have our nice smooth looking noodles interacting with our bowl. And that is just about it for this effect. So just play it through and make sure things are looking good. And if you have any issues with your sim, you can hit Control D to bring up the project settings. Then over in the Dynamics tab, under Expert, you can always try increasing the steps per frame and the solver iterations to get a more accurate looking sim. I found changing this to 6 and 11 gave me a pretty good result. And when you're happy with that, head over to the Cache tab and bake out your animation. And you should end up with something like this. And depending on your scene, you might like to go back to the soft body settings and tweak those to get the exact look you're after. So that brings us to the end of this tutorial. As usual, you can download the project file at the link below to save a bit of time, and you can grab the final render-ready project files for all of our tutorials, including this one, on our Patreon page. Big shout out to this month's patrons, you guys are the best, and we couldn't make these tutorials without your support. If you'd like to request a tutorial, post your work for feedback, or get help with anything, you can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/CG Shortcuts. That's it for now, I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching! Let me know what you want to see in the comment section down below, or you can leave a like or dislike, and don't forget to subscribe and click on that little bell icon for more videos and free stuff. There's loads of extra resources on our website, and you can win epic CG prizes in our monthly challenges. Check out cgshortcuts.com for more details. Catch you next time!